Jason Clark. I'm here from Montana State University and representing a team of individuals. I'm going to talk a bit about an ethical reflection aid, what we are calling a tool for responsible AI um, in, in the CAS environment, but really for GLAMs generally, at galleries, libraries, archives, museums. I want to note at the outset the team. Organizationally, we play a lot of different roles. There are administrators, there are deans, there are practitioners, technologists, and then disciplinarily, there are a lot of different. We have a philosopher, a technology ethicist. I like saying that. That's pretty great. That's Bonnie Sheehy. But then there are data scientists, there are user experience designers, there are data librarians. So we're really intentional about bringing this team together and this advisory board. Because one of the things we wanted with this particular project was a number of perspectives that was essential to any kind of tool design or development. We were funded by the IMLS. The timing of this was we went through a cycle. Just going to kind of talk through our process. In 2021, we pitched the idea, didn't really go through. 2022 comes around. If you all remember, shortly after American Thanksgiving, OpenAI drops ChatGPT and the world breaks, right? Like everybody wants to know, what is this thing? How do we do this responsibly? So just catching lightning in a bottle is really what happened to us. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the tool itself and where we are in the prototyping stage. I'll give a little bit of an time permitting. I'll work through how did we get here, and then offer a few next steps and where we might go. So again, I kind of dropped that catching lightning in a bottle moment. I think this is an understatement. AI is becoming common across all our sectors. But what we were struggling with is, how do you connect? All of us have an interest and an excitement around this technology, but what we're really wanting to know is, how can we do this, honor that excitement, but also, and the potential, because we see this technology is really, we are not, I think people hear ethics and they sort of go, oh, you're going to tell us not to do this. That's not our goal. We just want a considered approach to this technology, right? So we're really kind of working through what are GLAM values as you look into building these projects out and using this technology. And when I say this technology, I'm really kind of highlighting generative AI technology. This is sort of the opposite. This is a mantra. This is the opposite of Zuckerberg. Okay, Zuckerberg says, he's writing to investors, hey, we're going to move fast and break things. The opposite of this is, we're going to move slowly and shoot, I had it, but I lost it. The opposite of that. How about that? So here's what the aid looks like right now, currently in development. And when you see this, the prototype, you'll see it's on the courier print. But right now, it's like a 2-pager that you can work through the different sort of tasks and questions. It asks you to take a particular position on an AI implementation. We call them scenarios, and you are a stakeholder. Then you work through a series of ethical values for that implementation, and then you circle back around to actions that you can use to improve or correct an AI implementation. The tool prototype is up on OSF at that URL. That URL appears a number of times throughout this. So as I invite you to take a look at the sort of 2-pager, it's both sides. This is when you see this kind of text, this is what you see. So the instructions are there, and there's a wall of text. I'm just going to let you kind of look at it. I'm not going to say much. And I'll take a drink. So generally, we were thinking in terms of we're going to do a physical and a virtual representation of this. And initially, we had a card prototype so that you could kind of flip through, pick a value, and work through it. We still may use that. We talked with designers last week about an online implementation as well. Um, I'm hoping you kind of get a picture of it. Now I'm going to show you another component. So the scenarios look something like this, where you can kind of see number 3 really is something we heard about earlier today, a computer vision kind of scenario. One of the other things we realized in the research that I'll talk a little bit more about, time permitting, was that many times libraries or GLAMs were looking at third-party software, bringing it. So that was a scenario that we bring in. We heard a lot about a number of us who are actually doing that work, but there's also a sense in GLAMs where people are sometimes procuring solutions. And so we wanted a scenario where they're trying to understand, if I bring this in, I'm not in control of the weights and the models, but what does that mean? The values we came to were generally what you see on the screen. In some of our focus groups, there was a sense of what about environmental impact, and we thought that sort of fit under human-centeredness as a value. So we kept that. We didn't have that as a direct value, but you can kind of see these are very generic kind of containers for speaking to values that you can use or apply, ethical values. Some of the stakeholders that are part of that tool are listed here. Obviously, you can list your own. Again, this was focused on the GLAM community, and that's why you see a lot of different library type roles identified. And then the action reflection prompts. So this is after you've worked through a stakeholder and implementation and assigned some values, then coming back around to understand, okay, what can I do about that conflict I noticed, or this particular value, ethical value that's not being represented in the work itself. So the prompts kind of give you a move to whether it's the tool probably works best if you do it before implementation or before procuring, but you could ask these questions after and course correct your implementation. So how did we get here? I want to emphasize the team development process. It's not half. The evaluation and assessment, the case studies, and the design testing. So we did a lit review, and again, the lightning in the bottle moment. There was, in 2022, 2023, we're doing the lit review. You can imagine what some of that review looks like now. And so I'll just qualify that. And this is North American data, so Canada and the United States. So we did not look at international communities. I'm not going to work through, the slides are available, so you can kind of see the different components that we broke out. What was interesting to us at the time was these were the kind of work that was being written about. I think some of that has changed. Computer vision was sort of novel at the time, but I think that's coming. I think metadata automation is another one that's not really represented. All of these are published. The thing I'll say about this is that there was only about 35%, which really spoke to, which is not bad. 35% of these implementations or these articles in the lit review really spoke to ethics. Okay, so we recognized an opportunity. That lit review is published. We also did case studies with 8 author groups. So we recruited people into a study to actually work through different implementations. All of them were asked to write about ethical considerations in those case studies. The de-identification was actually genetic data, so that was really matched to individuals, so that there was a real, obviously ethical component to that order that needed to be worked through. But all of these had ethical questions that you could ask of the implementations. Those are also published. So you can see all of them in a special issue of the Journal of eScience Librarianship. As far as development, we did, because we have a user experience designer on staff, that's Scott Young. We worked through workshops at various places and with focus groups. And really, those values we did not invent out of thin air. I mean, we had a sense of what those values might be, but we're really using these workshops to develop the scenario and the values themselves. And we did things like asking about which values are relevant for AI in libraries. And depending on your lens, if you're an administrator, practitioner, a data scientist, you have different values that show up on here. And the importance is, the closer you get to the center, that's what you value as most. So I believe this is a practitioner. I'm not sure. I can't speak to the profile of the person who spoke or who built that particular one. And then we did places like we workshopped really terrible ideas, because what we wanted to do is create this sense that you could implement this without thinking. And what would that look like? And that was really freeing, liberating for the groups to actually try to do something, to get a sense of this. So no budget allocation, staff hiring. How could you make the most unethical or most irresponsible design for this AI implementation? Right. So it's fun ways to get, and these are some of the results, right? Like, don't worry about server space, or don't worry about existing workflows, just run at it, give it to the computer science folks, they know what they're doing, that sort of thing. I'm glad you're laughing. And it continues. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but the slides are there. But this process really led to, we were able to do that data analysis and bring it into the tool development and the prototype that you saw at the beginning of this presentation. So what we did is we looked at additional the workshop data, brought those values, the things we were hearing from our focus group, brought those forward into the development of the first draft of the tool. We also looked at other tools that were out there. Again, a lot of those tended to do big picture, think about just generally how AI gets into organizations. And what we really wanted is a tool that speaks to the archival community, this community, the computational archive community, and other GLAM subcultures. That framework, we did that review. I think there's another component of that will be released, I think as an article. But we started also to get into what is this? What are some design ideas? The data ethics canvas is kind of where we were coming with the first prototype. The idea of just like a 2-pager, a simple deliverable that somebody could use. The envisioning cards is still something that model or that card template that we'll probably do, and that might even play into the way the online interface works. You can kind of see what we wanted was a sort of like intentional white space, big type, good, strong, just sort of contrast. So all of this is playing into that final release. So here's where we are. You saw us go through that process. A number of the workshops were given at places like DLF, that's the Digital Library Federation. But we've also gone to a couple of data science conferences to see if we can learn more from that community as well. So really where we are is in that spring, summer. The final responsible AI tool, it's 2 slides. I did just see an email from Ananda, who's our designer. She's starting to think about how this looks in an online setting. But as far as like what I'd love to hear from this group, and the reason that I'm here is I just want these questions, ask these questions. You have the prototype, get in touch with me or with anybody on the team for questions. Watch for the release of the tool. That's me. So my email is there, and if you need to, you can catch me here. But thank you for the opportunity to present this idea.
Thank you. Interesting talk. Questions? Yep.
Your team, are they all researchers or some of them?
A number of us here. So the question, if you couldn't hear, was the team, are they researchers or practitioners? They're both. Yeah. And our project director is Sarah Mannheimer. She's an associate professor. We're faculty in the library, so a lot of us have a research and a teaching component to our job. But then you've got a couple others who are data librarian, kind of a mix of folks.
Yeah, that researcher practitioner mix is so
Mhm.
good memory.
Mhm. It's also, to your point, also the sort of, a lot of us were moving, like Dorlin is now our dean. So like people were moving from department head levels to different, and those questions, when you put a value in front of somebody, that the scope of the question changes, or the values change significantly.
Jane?
I want to know if you guys have any plans for workshops on this, or like what kind of tutorial to bring it like to a larger audience?
We've it's a great question. So the question was about plans for workshops to just sort of introduce the tool and how to use it. I don't think there are right now. A lot of our visits have been more focused on gathering feedback or working through the tool with a particular audience.
It might be something you got, I mean, the beauty of Zoom, sign up, everyone can wait and learn about it.
Mhm.
Get it out there.
Yep, love it.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Really nice work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great team.
Yeah.
Great.
I really loved how you facilitated those conversations between conflicting values, one stakeholder, multi-stakeholder conversations. And I wonder if it's possible to reuse the ethical concerns taxonomy that you developed in this focus groups.
I think it would be, absolutely. So the question was how to reuse these values. Let me get to them. These?
Yeah,
Mhm.
in the larger list that they come from.
Right. I think absolutely. Yeah, it's a good question. How would you see us reusing?
Well,
that?
for instance, we're cataloging Jupyter notebooks. Each project should tell you what ethical concerns come into it.
Mhm.
And it's just like to use it as taxonomy.
Yep. And I'll show you the values there.
Yeah.
Mhm. So
It occurred to me also when you went through it, it'd be nice, possible to use it as a tool with students, because I used to, I don't teach much anymore because I'm doing management type things nowadays. But I used to teach a class in information ethics, and I used to get them to do sort of thought experiments with ethical issues. That would be a very nice sort of framework for getting people to think about the ethics of AI, even if they weren't actually developing anything, just as a thought experiment to do in seminars, I think.
yeah, it's a great idea to suggesting that we take it into a teaching environment and use it with undergraduate students or graduate students. Yeah.
Any more questions? Yeah.
I'm wondering if you have any discrimination for those values, if there are any popular ones. This is a specific order based on no.
No. So the question is, is there a particular order or is one more popular than the other? And no, they're just randomly on the page. That's how they appear in the tool. And again, it sort of depends on which group you're working with about which values rises. It was striking because at first we were mostly working with practitioners, and it kind of became clear that there was like a divide around, oh, privacy is really important, but as some of us were moving up in the organization and realizing, oh, as an administrator, you might have a completely different set of values. Like, staffing was something like the ethics of staffing. Like, am I using this tool? Does that impact how I staff my library? Am I taking jobs away from people? Those sorts of questions were coming up for an administrator audience, right?
Just keep thinking that this community needs to think about sort of an analogous set of teaching approaches to the library carpentries, which are basically bringing certain kinds of programming and some computational, some limited computational
Mhm.
and librarianship to take it to sort of a different level, to have sort of computational and ethics of computational tools in an academic or a library environment.
I love that idea. I think, and I'm kind of looking at Dr. Greenberg and Dr. Marciano, who led a component of a data science continuing professional development kind of series of institutes and workshops and actually a mentoring and a mentee relationship to build data science skills. But I think the same idea could probably apply to an ethics and a machine learning context.
I don't think that anybody should be doing anything that could be classified as AI at this point. Because it's one thing to be able to program to find, the words surrounding X other word in a document
Mhm.
versus, for example, replacing human workers, generating description through automated means that may or may not be either accurate or respectful, right?
Mhm.
So I think that the need for the ethical dimension gets more and more urgent, not less and less so.
Right. And just to build on your point, I think one of the things we see is like computer vision. Like one of the things that I learned when I would use an LLM or I train a model, I'm humbled by sometimes it works really well, sometimes it doesn't. And like unless you're kind of working with the technology, it's hard to know what it's good at, what it's not.
And
Right.
there's also the layer of height of all of the
Yes.
kinds of what AI and those sorts of tools can do. Versus the actual realities of what is happening in the innards of the tool.
Mhm. There's like an AI literacy component, an ethics component, but using it in an applied workshop or mentor-mentee setting, I think there's another leading grant idea. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, sure.
I'm Bill Ingram. I'm with the University of Rogers at Virginia Tech. I love this. I think this is great. And I wonder, so you're sort of framed as being projects that are originated in the library. But have you been thinking about this larger, it's a new project on campus? I can see this becoming almost like a DLP where, any federally funded grant project needs to include an ethical plan that your tool can help them come to.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that idea. And we've done some work in our library where we brought a number of research entities into the building, and we have an alliance inside of the building. And within that, there's Research Cyber Infrastructure. They are the group that runs the GPUs. And so they're seeing a lot of like these questions will come through. It's like, I want to use this, but how do I use it right? Like, I'm worried about where the data goes. And that's a moment where this group and our tool can be implemented into the sort of processes of research in the institution. So I absolutely think there's an opportunity there. Yeah. Yeah.